I am going to show you how I've made this hand-tied, spiraled, garden-grown bouquet, all cut this morning with ingredients from our canalside cut flower garden. I had a phone call and I've actually officially closed our books for making bouquets, but the chap sounded so nice that I couldn't actually refuse him, and it's a really local delivery, and that's what I grow our flowers for, really, so that I can cut them, condition them, and then just send them out into the world just very, very closely. So how do you spiral with garden grown material when you haven't got super straight stems all the time? And I don't want super straight stems. I want stems with character, that curve, that have grown in the light. So I start off with the base of my transitional foliage, if you like. I leave my focal flowers to the second stage of the bouquet.
Here you can see that I've got a bucket of focal flowers and a bucket of my transitional flowers, and a lot of people do this, lay their flowers out in front of them in groups of the same type, and it does allow you to really see what you've got. So you can see me separating some mint there and some other kind of flowers, foliage, and what I'm doing is looking at the material and trying to get some colour palettes in my mind, so that when I spiral, one of the big things about spiraling is you can end up with blocks of colour, and it's really easy to do that. So you have to really think about each stem that you're putting in, where you're putting them, otherwise you can end up with it too blocky a look. The texture and shape and length of the stems is also very, very critical. So that penstemon is super long and is a spike, and you can see me with some hydrangeas there, which is a really nice transitional volume. But a lot of the shapes are just delicate flowers that will add texture and light and character to the bouquet. A good start to a spiral is always the point, and you're not going to get it looking like a nice beautiful round bouquet right from the get-go. So choose your central stems, and they almost just look like a triangle at that point, and then look to have a 45-degree angle and get some stems that are going down into that kind of funnel. So you can see here that it looks kind of like a vase at the top, and you can see the bottom stems are starting to triangle out. But if you have your binding point high up, you'll have a small bouquet. You can see that I'm holding it quite low down because I want this to be an absolutely huge, beautiful bouquet. So you can see there's quite a length of stem above my hand. I keep a critical thing, keep turning it the same way. As soon as you have it going the other way, you will stop that spiral shape that's forming in your hand. And when you're adding each of your stems, have a look at the colour and where it is in relation to its next stem. So you can see I'm holding the bouquet quite high, and that means I can have a really good look at where each stem is relative to the other. And I keep turning, I add some foliage and flowers. Gladioli are really fantastic for making that initial bouquet because they've got such a great length of colour and a really super stiff stem.
Because I grow a palette in my garden, I've been able to go out this morning and just snip the very best of the garden right now, which includes this beautiful rose. And you know, I've only got one beautiful rose left right now, and you don't need tons of kind of focal roses in a bouquet all the time, I don't think, because I've also got some Nanus gladioli and some of the dahlias, but you do want that one rose to sing. So I then add my focal flowers as the second stage to my bouquet.
So here you can see that I've got a nice kind of nest and basket of foliage and flowers, and there's already quite a lot of colour in that bouquet, and Timeless Purple is that rose that I've just reached for. Now what I do when I'm conditioning roses is I just cut the bottom of the stem off at an angle. I leave the thorns on while it's conditioning, and then I cut them off so that I can just slot it straight into the bouquet. And the way that I do that is I follow the line with the same stem, so that the rose, even though it hasn't been spiraled, you can see I put it straight in, it still has that line of spiraling. Now I've only got that one huge rose stem left because it's really late in the season. As you can see, I've got dahlias, and those are my last flowers that I have in any floral year in mid-autumn. So I've put that rose right in the centre, and I'm now adding some other dahlias to kind of marry with it. So when you put in these huge focal flowers, I don't ever want them to look like little soldiers dotted at equal distances around. I like to have them nestled further in the bouquet to give it depth, and also I like to have flowers on the top of the bouquet, but not too much on the top, because otherwise then you are starting to lose your shape of your bouquet. Now with this huge bouquet, I want it to feel very loose and wild, so I have a style of floral design called wild garden style. And so essentially what I'm trying to create in that bouquet is an armful of my garden. So if you could be here in my garden right now, you would get a feel and sense of that Verbena boreensis still flowering above the flower beds, my Echinops retro still giving out stems, the very last of my hydrangeas, that really beautiful Peacock gladioli that has a fabulous scent still going strong, that's Preference dahlias. And this colour palette is quite a sort of eclectic mix, if you like. It's got quite cool colours in it, and the lime green Nicotiana just pop, so you can't, I think, have very, very dark saturated colours like that 9 bark for foliage and then not have a contrast. Otherwise I think your bouquet can look too heavy and too dark. So what I'm trying to do with placing these heavy-headed dahlias is make sure that they're still talking to each other, so they're a good distance from each other, but they're not too far and they're not too close. I've placed the hydrangeas within proximity of each other as well, so that gives movement, and I've also placed them low down and high up, and you can see I'm largely still holding the spiral. It starts to get a bit big in your hand at this point, so you can see the spiral is still in shape when I've threaded my stems through, and that's because when I do thread them through, I put them in the same line and same shape as that initial spiral. So it's a really good idea then to tie off exactly on your binding point, because otherwise you will lose the entire shape of your bouquet. And because this is such a big bouquet with lots and lots of flowers, I tie it off twice. Do you know, it's a really good idea to make sure you tie in the binding point and then pull it above as well, because that way you know it's going to be really, really secure.
The advantage that I have tried to give myself in our cut flower garden here in Cheshire is to plant things everywhere in the garden, so that when one patch that's in full sun in the south of our garden has gone over, I've still got the same ingredients that are growing in different parts of the garden. So in the north, in a more shaded point, then it will give me a succession of flowers, because all cut flower growers are after that holy grail of a succession of cut flowers. An ingredient that I've grown that I'm hoping is going to self-seed, because I planted them as perennials last year, is this Verbena boreensis, and this is Pink Annabelle, who at this time in the autumn goes very, very green. I've also got some self-seeded lime Nicotiana. Now truthfully, I sowed this and it's a really sticky stem. I love the lime, but it's actually quite difficult to cut, but I might have to grow that again because it's just such a lovely colour against the rest of that palette. And I just had some self-seeders, unbelievably, that came up, and I thought, oh, I'm going to cut those for this bouquet, this unexpected bouquet. And that's why I grow flowers, so that I can go out and cut unexpected bouquets. And when you're looking at your garden and looking at planting ingredients, I so believe that the basis of a cut flower garden is perennials. And when I first started our garden here, I grew loads of annuals, but I would hugely recommend that if you're just a new flower grower, or if you've been doing it for a long time now, have a look at some perennials and plant some groups of perennials, because really in difficult weather conditions, which we've had in the UK this year, they have been the backbone and the mainstay of my bouquets. Yes, I've been able to cut dahlias and other annuals, but really it's my perennials that form the basis of my bouquets. And also grow yourself some good foliage, because you never know what foliage will be looking good at whatever seasonal moment, and it changes over time and it becomes more mature, and sometimes the foliage I grow has spring blossom on it. So give yourself some choices of foliage. Spirea is a brilliant foliage that I absolutely love. But give yourself some choices with that foliage, so it's not only looking good in autumn, but it'll give you some spring interest, so blossom in the spring. I haven't grown these Nanus gladioli before, and I definitely will grow them again, because what I've done, again for successional planting, is I've planted some corms earlier in the year, then I planted some more, and then I planted some more. And what it's meant that in mid-autumn I have gladiolus flowering, which is absolutely brilliant. The other thing about a floral season, you don't want to get to the end of your floral season and you've got too much flowering. So I've been able to pick this bouquet, but honestly I wouldn't be able to pick like 20 bouquets, because I've timed the garden to come to a natural seasonal end when I'm ending my floral season. So I think this is popping just up the road. I am hopeful that the person who's receiving it will be very pleased with it, because it does have scent. It's got some apple mint in there. But I think the main reason that I grow is because of that phone call today. The chap said to me, oh, I wanted something that was garden grown. I wanted something different. I wanted something beautiful. And that's why I couldn't refuse him, because it's absolutely why I grow. He wanted locally grown flowers, which is absolutely brilliant. And he was quite a young chap actually. So I'm just going to go and pop and deliver this, and hopefully what I've shared in how I've made this will let you have a look at your garden right now. And you might not think that you'd be able to cut a bouquet from your garden, but you actually could go out there and probably do it. When I had the phone call this morning from this chap, I literally looked out of the window as I'm talking to him to think, what have I got? Can I cut a bouquet for him that's going to look really seasonal, really scented? And he's obviously interested in sustainable flowers. So I, looking out the window, said, do you know, I'll cut you a bouquet, which is the advantage, and I think it's why many of us have a cut flower garden, so that we can go out with a bucket, cut the flowers, and then create bouquets for gifts or even for weddings.